Ever since I won the Fortnite World Cup, life has been pretty luxurious, but it wasn't always that way. For instance, this was my current setup, but I've been slowly upgrading it over the years, and just a few days ago, it cost over $10,000. But I hated it because it was way too expensive.
Whoa, brother, whoa.
Also kind of boring, the cable management sucked. Overall, it just looked tacky. So, after over 5 years, I decided to fix everything. And I'm gonna tell you how I completely transformed this same setup by actually downgrading so I can finally make things fair again. Okay, so I feel like this is my first true setup transformation, and I had a really good plan to go about doing everything. Also, Elgato sent me a huge care package to replace a lot of stuff that I wanted to get rid of. If you're a gamer or a streamer, I'm sure you probably already know about Elgato, but if you don't, they make products that work together seamlessly for your setup. I got a lot of brand new stuff to try, and luckily, everything happened to fit perfectly into my setup. Well, except for one thing. Let me explain. This is every script I've written for the last 10 videos I've made. I know I'm pretty bad at making videos, but that's all because I started writing scripts, which explains my upload schedule for the past year. I write scripts now mostly because I don't want to waste you guys' time, and also because I just suck at speaking to a camera. So every month when I would film a new video, I spent all day standing in front of my camera and talking for hours. But Elgato just sent me their new prompter for my setup, and I didn't use it because I've already been trying it this whole video. Prompter is basically a monitor that works on any of your cameras to display text, and that helps you keep natural eye contact the whole time. It was way easier than I thought to set up, and it's mostly all in the software. I can put my whole script in and change any settings I need to make sure I'm looking at the camera as naturally as possible. You can read at a scrolling pace, but it has a new voice sync feature that actively listens for your voice and scrolls at your talking pace. It's really crazy how random of a solution this has been, because this has ultimately been one of the biggest problems I struggled with making tech videos this year. So I want to genuinely thank Elgato for sending me over their prompter. Like, I'm being so serious. Sorry about that. I think this thing has a mind of its own. Anyways, setups are really all about appearance, and I've realized that you can have a really expensive PC and the best specs money can buy, but without any effort, a budget setup can easily look over 10 times better. I'm a victim of this myself, having a dual PC setup, 3 monitors, and a really nice standing desk, which I surprisingly have never been able to use. So my first step was to declutter and get rid of everything I didn't need. And that was literally over half of my setup, including one of my PCs. I've been using 2 PCs for the last few years. I bought a new gaming PC sometime around 2021, and my oldest PC was to stream everything I see on my new gaming PC without it losing performance. Now, it did make my new gaming PC a little bit more powerful, but more and more I found myself not using my older streaming PC, and it kind of became useless and mostly just annoying. Now, a few years later, I realized that being super minimal is so important to making an expensive or even a budget setup look good, and I promise that it takes less than $100, if not completely free, to fix your setup without upgrading a single thing. I mean, besides replacing my old equipment later on, I was only getting rid of stuff. If you want to know who inspired me to improve my own setup, Spawn Point has one of the best console setups I've ever seen, and Gutsy Aiden creates crazy PC setups from scratch. I'm not competing with them, but there's something very similar in every single picture that I've seen that instantly improves your setup, which is getting your PC off of the ground. It's the first step of fixing your cable management, which is mostly why my setup looks so bad in the first place. After decluttering, which by the way was a very useful first step, I ended up completely stripping down my setup to refresh it. I didn't know how much extra stuff I wasn't really using until it was all in front of me, and although it took me multiple hours, I was starting to make really good progress, and I was looking forward to the next step, which I think was definitely the most important. I used to think cable management was way harder than it actually is, and that made me avoid it for years, but it's so simple, and I personally fixed mine in less than an hour. Just like with the PC, I would say that the key to perfect cable management is also keeping everything off of the ground. It was different and took me some time to learn because it was my first time ever attempting perfect cable management, but it's a simple rule and it worked for me once I started grouping every set of wires. It was also an easier process for me to learn since I had a desk with a cable management solution. But even if I didn't have the floating outlet or the cable net, I would have gotten some command strips to stick a new outlet under my desk. I also bought some cable management clips from Amazon that I never ended up using, but that would have replaced the cable net. So if you want to fix your own cable management, which I obviously think is very worth it, I made a cheap Amazon list in the description with everything you can buy to fix your cables yourself. After I finished replacing my setup into the way I was planning and finished routing the cables, you can see how much of a difference it makes compared to how it used to look, and honestly, it makes me feel so much better that I have perfectly optimized cable management. You can't see any wires now that you're not supposed to, and I can actually use my standing desk at any height now. I thought feeling productive was a myth, but after fixing everything, it gives me such a big boost to my mood. Every time I'm even around my setup, there's absolutely no wires touching the ground, which looks crazy. And with the cable management ties that I bought, everything is optimized perfectly, and not having to look at loose wires just takes so much off of your mind. It's weird, but trust me, it works. So we got through the first step, then the most important step, and the last step is optional, but is also really fun. I didn't notice how boring my setup was until I set up everything Elgato sent me. Starting with the Lightstrip Pro. They also sent one of their Wave mics to try out, and even though it looked great, I have been wanting the Magic low profile mic arm to go with it for years. I went out and bought one to set it up, and it was not worth it at all. That's because they released a new and improved Pro mic arm that they sent me when they found out that I bought the old mic arm. I just love how both of them don't get in the way, and it's great because it'll never block the view of your setup or your monitor. But back to the mic. It connected to the Stream Deck Plus they sent me with an XLR mic dock attachment. This was a perfect replacement from my old mic setup because not only did the attachment turn it into an audio interface, the Stream Deck is super good for optimizing your whole PC experience. And although I'm just getting it set up, there's so many presets to download to make navigating Windows, apps, or games as simple as possible. Okay, last but not least, I added their key light to the end of my setup. It might not be for everyone, but when you're making content, you don't know how huge lighting is until you start using it. So always having a light source that can enhance the quality of your stream or the content that you're making definitely comes in handy. I'm also really happy to say that the software is amazing. It's just so refreshing and something I instantly understood. Right off the bat, everything just worked and worked together. I just had no problems, and I haven't used something so simple like this in such a long time. Finally getting to the finished setup, I think it looks amazing, and although there's always more room for improvement, I think I can definitely start calling this my dream setup. Thanks for watching, and if you want to check out the prompter or anything else from Elgato yourself, they have everything. So check the link below in the